new government of the Bahamas is hoping to give Bahamians a much-needed financial boost with its newly announced financial plans. Our One Caribbean News' Deandra Hamilton explains.
The new Philip Davis government of the Bahamas has announced a couple of mammoth-sized financial plans, which will put further pressure on the expenditure of government while aiming to give Bahamians a long overdue financial boost, an increase in pensions from the National Insurance Board, and a gradual hike in the minimum wage.
My government will increase the pension for senior citizens. My government will increase the benefits for persons with disabilities and ensure that the provisions of the Persons with Disabilities Equal Opportunities Act are fully implemented and enforced.
Right now, minimum wage in the Bahamas is a low $42 per day or $5.25 per hour. Pensioners receive a monthly payment of $297. The increase is needed, but the question is how can the limping economy meet these new demands?
My government will introduce legislation for the protection of consumers, and my government will increase the minimum wage and phase in a livable wage.
In an annual report from 2017, the National Insurance Board informed that pension payments were steadily escalating and exceeding projections. 4 years ago, the NIB paid out $286.5 million. The annual general meeting report advised that non-paying pensioners were on the increase while paying pensioners' figures were declining.
My government will work with all stakeholders to bring relief to mortgage and rent payers to prevent an increase in and reduce homelessness.
And that was our Deandra Hamilton reporting there. Well, meantime, over 300,000 Jamaicans will benefit from new grants under the government's COVID allocation of resources for employees care program to help the vulnerable hit hard by the pandemic. Jamaica's finance minister announced the $5.3 billion Jamaican dollar expansion in Parliament on Tuesday. Now, the minister said that over 6 months, one of grants ranging from $10,000 to $18,000 will be provided for vulnerable people in 6 categories at a total cost of $3.75 billion. Among the categories, there will be a $10,000 grant for 57,000 NIS pensioners who receive less than $10,000 monthly. Now, some members of the labor force will also benefit from the expanded care program.
In the approved budget, $6 billion is allocated, and what we're doing today is allocating a further $5.3 billion, bringing the total up, almost doubling it. And if you consider that this $5.3 billion is going to be applied over 6 months, and you were to annualize it, then you'd realize it's more than doubling in real terms. As I said in March, Madam Speaker, and I repeat here, as the conditions improve, we will put more resources in people's hands in a targeted way to those who need it most. And that is what we are doing right now. Madam Speaker, the intervention, though, has to be targeted to those who need it most. Everyone is affected. But in the interest of social cohesion, the government is assisting those who are most in need.
And meantime, Thursday marks 2 days of meetings for the FDA's vaccine advisors. Britt Conway has a look ahead at what's up for discussion today.
Digging into the data. That's what's on the agenda for vaccine advisors to the FDA. Today, they're scheduled to vote on whether to recommend Moderna's application for a half-size booster of its COVID-19 vaccine for certain groups at least 6 months after the second dose. The company says the goal is to increase protection and help worldwide vaccine supply. Tomorrow, Johnson & Johnson's booster will be up for a vote. Though if it does receive a recommendation, the company wants the FDA to decide who would get it and when. If both boosters get yes votes, the FDA will still need to formally approve the emergency use authorization. Then it'll be in the hands of the CDC's vaccine advisors before a CDC decision.
Sometime in the first couple of days of November, we very likely will get a recommendation from the CDC.
Also on Friday's agenda, consideration of mixing and matching shots. That's 9 different combinations that have been studied.
The most important takeaways are 2 things. One is that all of these different 9 combinations are safe, as in there are no new or different side effects. So all of these appear to be safe. And then the second big takeaway is that all of these combinations induced a pretty strong, robust antibody response.
But advisors aren't scheduled to vote on the issue just yet. I'm Britt Conway reporting.
And now the FDA's vaccine advisors are also scheduled to meet on October 26th to talk about pediatric vaccines. And meantime, some good news in the battle against the pandemic. The CDC projects deaths and hospitalizations to decline over the next 4 weeks. The CDC forecast suggests the total death toll will hit at least 740,000 by November 6th. Now, that's a grim number, but it indicates 3 weeks in a row with lower projections. Vaccinated people are more likely to survive infections and less likely to require hospitalizations. Now, the American Academy of Pediatrics says about a quarter of COVID cases are among children. In meantime, a new cruise ship makes its way to St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands this week. Carnival Freedom makes its first call to St. Thomas since resuming service. Carnival Cruise Line says Carnival Freedom arrived in St. Thomas on Wednesday for the first time since the industry-wide pause in operations. Carnival Freedom is the 4th Carnival ship to resume operations from Miami when it departed last week on an 8-day Eastern Caribbean cruise. St. Thomas is the ship's second port of call. It's then headed to San Juan. The president of Carnival Cruise Line thanks its partners in St. Thomas for working with them to bring safe cruising and guests back to the port. Carnival has more than half of its U.S. fleet in operation, and additional ships will resume service in the coming weeks and months as Carnival's successful restart of operations continues. And now when it comes to the airline industry, the Transportation Security Administration says 40% of its workers are unvaccinated, and the deadline is looming. Now, they need to be fully vaccinated by November 22nd, right before the busy Thanksgiving travel period. It takes weeks for doses to kick in, so time is running out. Even with the single-dose J&J vaccine, employees would have to get the shot by November 8th. The TSA administrator says the agency is creating contingency plans in case of a staff shortage.